one of the most hotly debated conversations as of right now. Who is the greatest featherweight of all time? And mostly, from what I'm seeing, the conversation is all about these three guys: Holloway, Aldo, Volkanovski. I don't see a lot of people talking about Conor. Now, I do get that he has never defended his title even once. But just to give him his flowers here, he did become an interim champion when he beat Chad Mendes. Right after that, he beat Jose Aldo. He didn't just beat him, he beat him in 13 seconds. He ended a 10-year unbeaten streak in less than half a minute. But mostly the conversation is about these three guys. But to me, I'm going to have to give it to Jose Aldo. And I really do. And there's only one reason why I would do that. Now, when I say that Jose Aldo is the greatest of all time, in my opinion, I'm not saying that Jose Aldo is better than all these other guys. Because in fact, they did fight and he did lose. To Holloway, to Volk, and to Conor. He lost to all of them. But when it comes to greatness, I'm going to have to give it to Jose Aldo. And the only reason why I am doing that is simply because Jose Aldo is at a point where he can no longer make himself greater. He can no longer compete and have a moment in a packed arena where people are yelling his name, telling him and chanting his name. He could never have something like that. He can never enhance his greatness. Meanwhile, these guys that are competing, Volk and Holloway, they still can. So while these guys, Volkanovski, Holloway, while these guys can still compete and have a moment like that, have a moment like this, while they can still do that, there's a guy out there in Jose Aldo that can never do it again. And the reason why that is relevant is because when you have somebody like Jose Aldo that can never make himself great at this point in his life, at this point in his career, that can never do it again because he's no longer there, it is up to the people to tell his story, to tell his greatness. The fear that he put in his opponent's eyes, the excitement that he put in the fans' mouths. Whenever Jose Aldo was fighting, you knew his opponent was in trouble, and you were in for a treat to watch the greatest featherweight of all time fight these guys and beat him with one single attack, a leg kick. You were in for a treat because you knew what Jose Aldo would do to these guys. The beatdowns that he would put. And he became that guy. He became a boogeyman. And he did it at the highest level when he was competing for titles. When he was fighting for titles. This is not a man that dominated one organization. He dominated two. In those WEC days, he was the boogeyman. You are going to fight this guy and you will not come out without a bruise. Maybe even without a black eye. He struck fear in his opponent's eyes like nobody did before. And it is up to people to tell the story of Jose Aldo and to relive his greatness and what he did and what he meant to the sport. You're talking about a guy that when people knew he was going to fight, everybody was going to tune in. Because they knew the violence that he's going to bring. He was Justin Gaethje before he even existed. He was that guy. He was feared by many. And for these guys that could still compete, Volkanovski, Holloway, these guys, they can be on that stage telling how great they are after they've beaten their opponent. They can still have that moment where they are being interviewed by Daniel Cormier in front of thousands of fans chanting their name in front of millions of people watching on television on the worldwide leader of ESPN. They can still have that great moment. But what you have here is a guy that can't. It's a guy that is no longer competing. And I just feel this obligation to tell the story of a guy like Jose Aldo. The obligation to show his greatness and to tell it to the world. And to remind them how great he was. Because while all these other guys can, while they can still compete and be great in front of millions, you have a guy that's being forgotten. And I feel like at this point in Jose Aldo's career, people need to tell the story of not just Jose Aldo, but his featherweight greatness.